Right now, you can recall what you ate yesterday, the face of someone you met last week, a song from a decade ago that still finds you in the car, unannounced, word for word. Your brain is a recording device, and it almost never stops. It's running as you read this. But reach back far enough, past your first day of school, past your earliest birthday, past the oldest photo of yourself you've ever been shown, and you hit a wall. Somewhere around 3 years old, the footage just ends. Before that, nothing. Not a blurred memory. Not a faded one, a blank. You probably assumed the recording light simply wasn't on yet. A baby's brain too unfinished, too raw, too busy growing to save anything worth keeping. It's the obvious answer. It's the one most people would give. It's also wrong. Because the recording light was on. We can now watch an infant brain file a memory in real time. Which leaves a much stranger question. The kind detectives ask, standing in an empty room where something clearly happened, but the evidence is gone. If it was recorded, where did it go? Was the file deleted? Or is it still in there, intact, just misplaced, locked behind a door you've lost the key to? Scientists genuinely can't agree yet, and the answer changes what you think memory even is, including whether the most important years of your life are gone for good or merely waiting in the dark. The phenomenon has a name: infantile amnesia. Sigmund Freud coined it in 1899 after noticing that his adult patients could barely retrieve anything from their first years of life. Freud thought we repress those years, that they're too charged, too raw to face. He was wrong about the cause, but he was right about the gap. It's real, and it's almost perfectly universal. Across decades of studies, the average adult's first memory dates to about 3.5 years old. Everything before that is the blank wall. Now hold that wall against what those missing years actually held. In that window, you learn to walk. You learn to talk. You learn to recognize the one face that meant safety and to cry when it left the room. You turned raw noise into language. It was the steepest learning curve of your entire life, and it's the one stretch you can't reach at all. The richer the years, the cleaner the erasure. So start where the mystery starts. Did anything get recorded in the first place? In March of 2025, a team at Yale answered that. Tristan Yates and Nick Turk-Brown published a study in the journal Science that did something close to impossible. They placed 26 infants from about 4 months to 25 months old inside an fMRI scanner, a machine that demands total stillness from subjects who can't be asked to hold still, and showed them faces, objects, and scenes. For decades, the textbook answer had been that the infant hippocampus simply wasn't built yet to do this job. This is the study that watched it do the job anyway. When one specific region lit up during viewing, the hippocampus, the same structure adults use to form episodic memories, the baby would later look longer at that same image. And in infants, longer looking is the language of recognition. I've seen this before. The effect grew stronger after their first birthday, but it was there. The infant brain had encoded something, it had filed it away, and it could find it again. So the steel man collapses right here. Nothing failed to record. The light was on the whole time, which means this was never the story of a tape that stayed empty. It's the story of footage that was filmed, and then went missing. So where does it go? Here's the reversal. The wall you hit doesn't slam down at birth. It builds slowly while you grow, and you never feel it happening. At Emory University, Patricia Bauer and Marina Larkina caught that wall in the act of forming. Mothers sat with their 3-year-olds and talked through 6 real past events: a trip to the zoo, a birthday, an ordinary afternoon. Then, years later, the researchers came back to see how much each child still held. The result ran backwards from intuition. The younger children, between 5 and 7, actually remembered more of those early events. The older ones, 8 and 9, recalled fewer than 40%. Even though the memories they kept had become sharper, more detailed, more adult in shape. Sit with that for a second. The memories don't vanish all at once, in a single cut to black. They drain out gradually across childhood while you're busy living. Adult-style remembering consolidates around age 7, and the price of becoming the kind of person who remembers like an adult is losing almost everything from before. You were present for the whole erasure. You just never noticed it happening because the part of you that would have noticed was the part being overwritten. And here's the part almost nobody talks about. Where your wall sits isn't set by biology alone. It was partly built by other people, by the voices around your crib. In 2000, researchers Shelley McDonald, Kimberly Wasiliana, and Harlene Hain published a study in the journal Memory, comparing adults from 3 cultural backgrounds in New Zealand. They asked each person to date their single earliest memory. The Maori adults, whose culture places unusually strong emphasis on the past, on storytelling, on naming exactly where you come from, averaged around 32 months, roughly 2.75 years old. Among the earliest first memories ever documented for any cultural group, adults from Asian backgrounds reported the latest. The more your past was spoken back to you as a child, the earlier your memory begins. So try it now. Reach for your single earliest memory, the very first frame you have. Hold it. Whatever you landed on, you were almost certainly at least 3. And how early that wall sits for you was shaped, in part, by how often the people who raised you turned your life into words at the dinner table. Your first memory isn't only yours. It was co-written. But none of this explains the mechanism. Why would a working memory system tear itself down? What's the actual machinery doing the erasing? For that, go to Toronto, to the Hospital for Sick Children, and the work of Sheena Jocelyn and Paul Franklin. Their answer is almost paradoxical. Your infant brain forgets because it's growing. The infant hippocampus runs neurogenesis, the production of brand new neurons, at an enormous rate. And new neurons don't simply add storage, like blank tape onto a reel. As they wire themselves into existing circuits, they reorganize those circuits, overwriting the traces already there. Jocelyn and Franklin showed the link was causal. When they suppressed neurogenesis in infant mice, the animals kept memories they'd normally lose. When they boosted it in adult mice, they induced forgetting that should never have happened. The new neurons were writing over the old ones to make room, expanding the brain's capacity to learn at the direct cost of what was already stored. That's the trade. Your earliest memories weren't lost to accident or damage. They were paved over by the very growth that was building the rest of you. But there's one more layer, and it's the strangest of all, because it suggests paved over might not mean gone. In a study published in the journal Current Biology, researchers tagged the exact cells that encoded a memory in infant mice, the original engram, the physical trace of a single experience. The mice grew up and, by every normal test, forgot. The memory was unreachable. No ordinary cue could bring it back. Then the researchers reached in and artificially switched those same original cells back on, and the memory returned. The animal behaved as if it remembered the thing it had supposedly lost forever. The file hadn't been deleted. It had been misplaced, and when they found the key and turned it, the footage played. So which is it for you? Misplaced or erased? This is the honest edge of what we know. We have strong evidence that human infants encode real memories. We have proof that in mice, lost infant memories can be switched back on like a light. But what science still cannot tell you is whether your earliest memories truly survive, sitting inaccessible somewhere in your adult skull, or whether the neurogenesis that rebuilt your hippocampus wrote over them for good. Storage without retrieval versus genuine erasure. In humans, it remains unresolved. The Yale team itself treats the possibility that those traces endure into adulthood as a radical, almost science fiction idea. A clue, not a verdict. But notice what is settled. The question we opened with, why you can't recall it, has an answer. The system that filed those memories was torn down and rebuilt while you grew. Whether the originals are buried or destroyed, the machine that could read them is gone. So step back and see the whole shape of it. It wasn't a failure. Nothing broke. Your infant brain recorded faithfully. The scanner proves it. Then it spent your childhood overwriting that record, neuron by neuron, because the fastest learning brain a human will ever have cannot also be a brain that keeps everything. Forgetting wasn't a flaw in the design. Forgetting was the design. You traded the footage of learning to walk for the ability to learn anything at all. And here's what should sit with you. That machinery never switched off. It's still running right now, quieter than it once was. You still remember least from the years you learned most, not by malfunction, but by design. The same trade that emptied your infancy is the one that lets you take in the world today, the one that filed the face from last week and the song in the car. You are, in the most literal sense, built on a foundation you will never be allowed to see. Which brings us back to the recording light. It was on. It was always on. Your first years were never a blank tape, never empty, never unlived. They were filmed in full, the most important footage you will ever generate, and then sealed behind a door whose key your own growing brain melted down for parts. So this is the one stretch of your life you'll only ever know on faith. Not because nothing happened there, because everything did. And you became the person who can't go back and watch.